Morning, everyone. Westjet is announcing they're ending physical distancing on flights, opening up all seats for sale starting July 1st. That lasted less time than I thought. I thought we'd be going the whole summer with, some form of physical distancing on planes or whatever, but I guess they're counting on the masks to work, which I don't know. I don't know about the whole idea of wearing a mask during an entire flight, or an entire flight except when you're eating. It seems odd. Seems like not a great recommendation, I don't know. So moving on, here is Liberal government willfully blind to threat from China, Conservative MP says. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government appears willfully blind to a growing body of intelligence evidence regarding China's interference in Canada, the Conservative Shadow Minister of Canada-China Relations said Friday. MP Garnet Genius, the Conservative member of the Special Committee on Canada-China Relations, made the comments after Global News reported that Canada is a permissive target of China's broad influence campaigns, according to reports from CSIS, Canada's Security Intelligence Services. Intelligence experts say China is undermining Canada's democracy by targeting elite politicians and business persons with, quote, sweetheart business deals and economic inducements. In this so-called elite capture strategy, China's Communist Party wins support for its foreign policy, experts said. A Parliamentary Intelligence Committee review of CSIS warnings suggests Ottawa has been slow to respond to China's threat. Genius told Global News that Canada needs to tackle national security threats posed by China's interference with the same urgency and comprehensive responses that Ottawa has previously applied to the threat of terrorism. Quote, there's a growing body of evidence to suggest Canadians should be very concerned in general about foreign interference and with the Chinese state in particular, he said. What looked like naivety actually looks more like willful blindness because they have this intelligence and they are not acting on it. Genius and Conservative MP Dan Albas said the Global News analysis of China's elite capture threat should be examined in the special committee, but the Liberal government, with the support of several NDP and Green MPs, ended the Canada-China relations hearings during the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, our government's top priority is keeping Canadians safe. Alongside our international partners, Canada's national security agencies are constantly working to identify threats to national security, including foreign interference and espionage, a statement from Bill Blair's office said. Quote, we welcome the report from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians released earlier this year, which studies this issue. Didn't say Chinese relations, didn't say anything about the capture or anything meaningful. This issue. The matter, right? Back to the article. And continue to remain vigilant for potential threats and to take appropriate measures to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. This is a milquetoast nothing statement. This says nothing. This says nothing of significance or note. This is the patented, we're trying to keep Canadians safe, and this issue is very, very, very important to us. And, we spoke to this at this and this and this and this and this. Typical Bill Blair. Right? Typical Bill Blair. What about the illegal guns, sir? We're keeping Canadians safe by banning all firearms. Oh, okay, great. Wonderful. Thanks, Bill Blair. Back to this. Experts told Global News not all politicians and businesses that trade with China are being influenced, and cases of espionage and elite capture have yet to be proven in Canada. You know where I remember that? When Dr. Tam was saying at the outset, cases are low and person-to-person or when non-sick people are contagious. That hasn't been proven in Canada. And then the whole economy got locked down. Remember that? I remember that. Sounds the same. Sounds like the same BS excuse. Here is cronyism. And cronyism is when you give your friends benefits and they benefit from your political connections and whatever. So here's the Globe and Mail says, Trudeau accused of cronyism over giving We Charity a contract to run $912 million student volunteer program. I still can't quite figure out is the We Charity flooded with job requests from people? I don't understand how these people could administer a federal volunteer program. And Trudeau was even saying that they're the only body that could do it in Canada. Did they not just roll out the curb payments? Like, this seems like cronyism, just giving your buddies a little cash kickback from the taxpayers. It just seems odd, right? Anyway, you got to pay attention to these odd things. Back to this. Justin Trudeau is facing accusations of cronyism after his government outsourced the administration of a $912 million student volunteer program to a charity with close ties to the Prime Minister and his family. Okay, so they're rolling out $912 million to the student charity to be administered, right? This Me to We. And didn't they say a little while ago? Okay, so 3 months ago on April 9th, they said Ottawa silent on help for oil patch they promised was days away in March, not April, in March. And then and then in April, patience running short for federal energy industry aid, Alberta minister says. So April, right? March. Here's May. Help for Canadian oil patch coming in hours, possibly days, finance minister promises. May 25th. That's March 25th. Sorry, I thought that was May 25th. March, April. And that's it. That's it. Does anybody know if the oil patch got the promised help? I don't know. The last update we have, I thought that was May. It's not, it's March. April 7th. That's the last one I've got. And I couldn't find anything more. I thought the most up-to-date one was May, but obviously it's March. So, whoops. And, right? You'd think that they'd roll that kind of stuff out. Does anybody have any updates on that? I'll look and see if I can find anything. Back to this. The government announced Thursday that the new Canada Student Service Grant will be administered by We Charity, an international charity that organizes large-scale We Day events for young people that frequently feature Mr. Trudeau and his wife, Sophie Gregory Trudeau, as keynote speakers. Isn't it interesting? Like, you guys run a We Day conference? Can you administer a $900 million federal program? Thanks. What? It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I understand that Justin Trudeau is recognizing his lack of ability here. Phoenix pay is still an issue. So maybe if he's trying to roll out money, he's got a bit of a mixed bag. He can get the curb out, but he can't pay his public servants. So, weird. If you're on Phoenix pay and you're still not paid properly, well, thank you, Justin Trudeau. Back to this. Miss Gregory Trudeau is a volunteer, quote, ambassador and ally of the We Wellbeing Initiative and hosts a mental health podcast for the organization. This word, ally, this one, it's in the schools too. There's a lot of people who claim to be an ally without defining what that term means. And it's meant to be a good term. You're an ally, right? The Allies won the Second World War. You're allied against something evil, right? And every time it's used in the newspapers, it's positioned as in a positive light, like Sophie Trudeau Miss Gregory Trudeau is an ally, right? She's an ambassador of this wonderful organization that, gives cover for organizations that use child labor. But whatever, the bygones, right? Doesn't matter. Welcome to today, because today Justin Trudeau anointed them as the only entity in Canada that could administer their federal $912 million giveaway to students who aren't allowed to do work that should be done by employees, by the way. I don't know how they're going to do that. Can you shred this newspaper for $10 an hour? I don't know. You can't do the work that I would pay somebody for. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. What do they do? What is the goal of this? I don't know. Okay, the ally thing. It is newspeak dog whistle. Back to this. While most of the $912 million will go to student volunteers, Mr. Trudeau declined to say Friday how much of that amount will go to the We charity for administration costs. He also said it was the public service that concluded the charity is the only organization in Canada that has the scale and ability to deliver the program. The only organization in Canada? Which public service said that? The only one? Really? Welcome to Canada. See this charity here? They know what they're doing. These guys are administering everything. We can't do it. We have no idea what we're doing. We had to outsource it to these people. This charity. Welcome to Canada. Oh my goodness. Back to this. Yes, I've worked with We in the past because I believe strongly in promoting opportunities for young people, he said. I've appeared in events with them voluntarily, of course, and have done that with many great businesses and organizations across the country that I believe in and I think we need to support and will continue to do so, as will my family. Conservative NDP MPs call on the federal government to release the terms of the federal contract with the We charity. NDP ethics critic Charlie Angus expressed skepticism that the public service would recommend outsourcing administration of a federal program after recently demonstrating the ability to manage much larger emergency programs during the pandemic. Quote, "It stinks of cronyism," he said in an interview, adding that We Day events have given the Trudeaus a positive platform over the years to address thousands of Canadians as they are about to become first-time voters. Quote, "I find it extraordinary that Canada's civil service would come to the Prime Minister and say, quote, 'Listen, we're not equipped to deliver programs for the Canadian people. You should privatize it and give it to a group that's very close to you,' he said. 'I would love to see who gave that recommendation because it just boggles the imagination.'" Yes. Mr. Angus said that he's concerned that We Charity's work would presumably be exempt from federal access to information laws and that the organization will be gathering large volumes of personal information on participants. Yeah, I mean, like, you would think that privacy would come into this, right? Like, you would think so. Back to this. Conservative MP Raquel Dancho, excuse me if I got that wrong, her party's critic for diversity, inclusion, and youth, said Mr. Trudeau's explanation raises questions about his involvement in the decision. Given the Trudeau government's history of ethics violations, the Liberals must immediately release the contract for this partnership, she said in a statement. Trudeau's failure to provide answers about this contract raised more questions about how he was involved in this decision, why he doesn't think his own government officials can administer the program, and how much it will cost Canadians to outsource this program. The new grant program offers 5 levels of payment ranging from $1,000 to $5,000, offering $1,000 for each 100 hours of volunteer work completed between June 25th and October 31st, 2020. A spokesperson for We referred questions to the program to the federal government, so they're not going to tell you what they're doing. And We Charity will help administer the program, quote, "by providing back-end support for screening, onboarding, and training and matching functions in addition to the disbursement of grants to eligible participants," the government said. A spokesperson from Employment and Social Development Canada said the department recommended funding We Charities to deliver the program based on the charity's past work with the government. The Globe and Mail is a We Charity partner. This is a Globe and Mail article. Nicole, I'm not going to attempt her last name, National Deputy Chairperson of the Canadian Federation of Students, said in an interview that her organization's main concern with the contract is the lack of clarity over how much of the program's budget will go to We's administrative costs and whether that money could have been better spent on students. She also expressed concern that the program would be used to replace paid work, pointing out that the program will pay students $10 an hour, which is less than minimum wage. Quote, "We don't want to see students in a position where they're performing work that an employee of an organization should be doing." Right? You ever tried to sweep a floor or mop a floor in a school? That's not your job. You can't do that. Can't even do it to help. You got to call the custodian. Back to this. It's very, very interesting, the cronyism here. It's really odd that Canadians are just kind of going to shrug through this. This is not going to, I don't think this is going to change. The Liberal government's not going to backtrack on this. They're giving $900 million to a charity to administer, to get people volunteering. Where are these jobs that are, if you can't pay them for work that a paid employee should be doing, and you're not allowed to pay somebody $10 an hour to do work voluntarily, right? Come and volunteer for me and I'll pay you $10 an hour. You can't do that in Canada. That's not legal strictly, unless you do it through these guys. It stinks. This stinks. This is absolutely, it seems like a terrible, terrible idea. And, well, I mean, what are you going to do? It seems like the federal government doesn't care. That's what it seems like. The federal government just doesn't care. Here's 2 interesting stories that I came across this morning, moving on from the federal government. Toronto and Vancouver are both buying hotels. Okay, so we'll just go through quickly here. 10 hotels are being bought, 2 apartment rental buildings, and 50 permanent housing units. City of Toronto buys hotels and rental units for homeless in response to the coronavirus. This is a City News article. And here's a BC article posted June 24th. Today's June 27th. BC government buys 2 Vancouver hotels to help house homeless. This doesn't solve the core problem of homelessness. The core problem of homelessness is not enough shelter, but too costly. There are other contributing factors, mental health, addictions, all sorts of different contributing factors to homelessness. And putting somebody in a house solves the homelessness issue, but doesn't solve the other problems that got them there. And yes, maybe access to certain aid and other things, but realistically, what is the goal with purchasing more housing capacity? Is it just to always house homeless people? Is that not always an ever-expanding goal, especially with a leaky border, with people just crossing the border and accessing social services in Canadian cities? This will continue to get more expensive if there's no way to stop the homelessness problem, and that requires actually addressing the core issues, which are cost of housing, accessibility of housing, the ability of people to afford the housing, right? All of those things that are being influenced by our immigration policies, by our government policies, both provincially and federally. Until we get a handle on that, and until there's an actual plan to stop increasing the number of homeless all the time, buying more capacity, it's a losing gig. Like, eventually it's going to just, the costs are going to balloon exponentially all the time, right? Like, it's just going to keep going up. And I've been doing this show for, 3 years now, 3 years almost, 2 years, whatever it is, more than 2 years. And I have been talking about homelessness and the issues of homelessness for all of that time. And nobody has ever wanted to ever discuss the core issue. And this is just another way for it to cost more money. Eventually, these are going to be at capacity too. There's not going to be more money to spend because the political will is not going to be there to do it. And then what, right? Like, the problems are not being solved. And this is a Band-Aid on a very deep knife wound, okay? That's the problem. That's the issue. Nobody's willing to solve the problem. They're only willing to say, it's not that bad. Here, I got these Band-Aids. They're really good. They're really good. It won't hurt at all. Ooh, maybe another one. Bleeding through there, eh? Here's Justin Trudeau, and yesterday is June 26th. He says, today marks Dr. Theresa Tam's third anniversary as the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada. Join me in thanking Dr. Tam for all her hard work and dedication over the years and for ongoing commitment to keeping Canadians healthy. Excuse me. Yeah, I know, right? Here is an article from May 15th from the National Post. It says, what Canada must learn from its flawed COVID-19 response to get ready for a second wave, right? Prep us for the second wave. I don't think a second wave is coming unless it's manufactured. Back to this. Chief among them, Canadians were slow to recognize the magnitude of the threat posed by an unfeeling virus. Canadian health officials continued to stress the risk to Canadians was low into the second week of March, even though many scientists were saying otherwise, and nervously eyeing the carnage unfolding in Italy. Travel restrictions came late. The country's largest province lost control of the testing to look for the genetic footprint of the virus in cells swabbed from the back of the nose. These were unacceptable. There were unacceptable testing backlogs, critical shortages of swabs and key ingredients, and after decades-long negligence of emergency rooms, it was too late for hospitals to suddenly build surge capacity for COVID-19 patients. The surge never came. The hospitals were empty. Back to this. On January 15th, Canada activated its Emergency Operations Centre. On January 29th, Dr. Tam, Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, told MPs on the Health Committee it was possible that asymptomatic persons could spread the virus, but it would be rare and very unlikely that it would be key drivers of any actual outbreak or epidemic. On February 1st, the WHO's situation report stated that the agency was aware of the possibility people were spreading the virus before showing symptoms. 4 days later, Tam, appearing before the Health Committee again, said the case reports out of China hadn't been verified or substantiated. NDP Vancouver East MP Jiren Kwan asked, had we contacted China directly for clarification? Tam responded that it actually is quite a difficult piece of epidemiology to ascertain whether some asymptomatic person could ever transmit. So she didn't answer the question. Did we contact China? Oh, well, who would know? We can't know. It's very, very complicated. Back to this. It's when someone is coughing vigorously that they're more symptomatic that we believe the virus is transmitted. While other countries closed borders, Canada posted messages on arrival screens, added screening questions on electronic kiosks at Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver airports, and handed out pamphlets requesting returning travelers inform border service officials if they were feeling fluish to self-monitor for symptoms. For asymptomatic people, Canada's health leaders said there was no evidence yet we should be quarantining them. It took until the third week of March for Canada to finally close its borders to non-essential travel, including to the United States. Border measures are only one layer of the response to a frightening new pathogen. The other one is The other is a once unimaginable shutdown of public life, but that misstep allowed the virus to gain a footstep, experts say. Canada's initial lack of robust border policy or mandated supervised quarantine program for both incoming travelers and contact of documented cases has impaired our ability to contain the epidemic here. Peter Phillips is a clinical professor of medicine at the Division of Infectious Diseases at the University of British Columbia. So that's who was commenting there. The early response trailed the evidence. It wasn't until the end of March that Canada began enforcing a 14-day quarantine for any person entering Canada by air, sea, or land, whether or not they had symptoms of COVID-19. On April 7th, Tam tweeted that studies from several countries had now demonstrated pre-symptomatic virus spread was indeed occurring, and more often than previously thought. In retrospect, we could have closed the USA border earlier and restricted all incoming flights to Canada to a handful of airports earlier, descending upon those airports with overwhelming public health powers, including mandatory testing and quarantining of all travelers from China and Europe. University of Ottawa Global Health epidemiologist Raywit Denodin, excuse me if I got that wrong, wrote in an email. Previously, preventing people from going abroad for March break could also have helped. To free up hospital beds for COVID-19 patients, thousands of scheduled surgeries were shelved at the end of March. We emphasized ICU units and ventilator capacity and forced the infections out to the community into understaffed, underprotected long-term care homes, as if older lives were less worthy. In Quebec, the Canadian military was dispatched to help free and care for residents across Canada. 80% of COVID-19 deaths have been linked to long-term care, and that's much worse than other countries. Canada's proportion of long-term care deaths double the average of other nations. And unintended consequences of surgery delays. This is an article that talks about people who have died from because their pacemaker installation didn't happen, and so they died of a heart attack or something to that effect. And so this is tone deaf. This is tone deaf. Right, this is Justin Trudeau ignoring the failings of one of his handpicked people, and it's not like there are just a few of them. Like that took several minutes for me to go through the mistakes and missteps from not just Dr. Tam, but the whole team: Patty Haydu, the WHO, the media, and the press for claiming that anybody who claimed X was spreading conspiracy theories, etc. It's so interesting how far we've come from what's happened in late February, early March to now, and the longer this goes on, the less it seems like it's about a virus. And the missteps and the awful continual spin from our political leaders just is a full denial of the reality of a lot of Canadians, a lot of people who died because of their inaction, because of their inability to do anything. And this is just one aspect. I'm not even talking about the impact of the economy, that we didn't need to shut down the economy if we had managed this correctly in the first place, right? Like had we done our due diligence, had we reacted in time, maybe we wouldn't have had these clusters. Maybe we wouldn't have had as many cases as we've had. And yet the inaction led directly to all of these terrible consequences. And that's why I think that she should be, face consequences for her bad advice, her being wrong, her inaction, her I don't know, all of it. But she shouldn't be celebrated. Certainly not celebrated. My goodness. Tone deaf. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check CanadaPoly.com, check CanadaReport.co, and check out SpeakingMoistly.co as well. I've got lots of content up on all of those, so hope to see you there. And thanks for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.